click for IB Biology. Here we're looking at adaptations to habitats. There's a blank version of this PDF in the description, which you can annotate with your own notes as we go along. But then there's also a quiz of 10 questions with the answers so that you can check your learning. So we're discussing the adaptations of organisms to the challenges of habitats. So let's be clear on what the nature of the habitat is. So the habitat is perhaps thought of as composed of two parts. There's the geographical location and the physical location. Geographical refers to the Earth position of the habitat, its latitude, its longitude, its elevation, how far up a mountain it might be, the climate experienced long term by that location, and the proximity of that location to bodies of water such as oceans and lakes. The physical location is a more local description of the habitat and might refer to features such as mountains, rivers, and lakes, just as examples. So this is very much what we would ordinarily call the abiotic environment. And if we recall that the ecosystem is about the community of organisms within this habitat, which is the abiotic environment. So we're going to be looking at biological adaptations to the challenges of habitats, to the challenges of the abiotic world. In theoretical terms, as we move forward in this, let's remind ourselves that the population growth at any stage, the population on the y-axis here, is a consequence of unlimited exponential growth affected by environmental resistance. So environmental resistance is anything which slows down the population growth. And here we're considering that the environmental resistance are the abiotic factors, which we also call the habitat. So this will reduce the theoretical rate of reproduction and the population size. Now, the individuals who survive the challenges of the habitat do so because they have what's called a selective advantage. They have some kind of survival advantage which allows them to survive. And because they survive, they are able to reproduce and pass on their survival advantages to their offsprings. And most often we would think about this in genetic terms. You have the gene for the feature, for the specialization, which allows you to have a survival advantage. So we notice that at this stage there's a close link between studying ecology and studying evolution. And indeed, some authors have suggested that ecology is actually evolution in action. And as we study ecology and we look at how organisms survive the challenges of a habitat, we're actually seeing change and we're seeing examples of evolution. So let's take a look at two examples. The two changing environments which present habitat challenges are the shifting sands of the sand dunes and the tidal waters and mud accumulation of mangrove estuarine environments. The two organisms that meet these challenges through their adaptations are marram grass and Rhizophera. Marram grass is a dune grass, and Rhizophera is a very common tree to be found in these two locations. So let's take a look at how their adaptations to these challenges. So here's the marram grass to start with, and the challenge which is facing the marram grass is wind, and the sand nature of the dunes means that there's a very low water availability. There's a real water, often we describe that as a water stress. And when we look at the structure and form of marram grass, we see it trying to meet the challenges of these abiotic factors. So let's take a look. Well, the first thing that they have is a thick cuticle around the stem of the grass, and that prevents water loss. Also, they have a deep root system which allows them to access water which is percolated down through the porous sand. Wind has the effect, normally with a leaf, the effect of wind is to blow away water coming through the stomatal pores. In transpiration, it blows the water away and as a consequence draws the water up faster into the leaf system. However, if the wind blows too fast, then this can cause the plant to become desiccated, to lose water. Marram grass's solution is to take their leaf and to roll it like so, so that the outer epidermis is here and the lower epidermis is in this position here, as you can see here. There's the lower epidermis. And so the water is coming out of the stomatal pores here. But rather than being blown away by the wind, the humidity builds up in this cavity, this zone here, and prevents the actual water loss. So the water loss gradient of transpiration is not formed in this particular area. This is actually what is known as a boundary layer, which prevents water loss. So those are a few of the features of marram grass in response to wind directly and low water content. And another feature of the marram grass is what we call not its physical form, which we just described, which is the resistance to change, but its resilience, the capacity to bounce back from severe habitat challenges. And so in the case of marram grass, the significant one is if I draw a sand dune here like this, and we have marram grass like that, the wind will cause the sand to accumulate like so, burying the grass. However, the grass's growth point is below the surface anyway, and it grows up and through the sand like so, and anytime sand accumulates, it continues this growth process, and in fact causes a change on the habitat as it helps the stabilization of the sand and the creation of the larger sand dunes. So resistance are features that you have that prevent the effects of habitat changes. Resilience are features which you use when the environment has changed anyway. Let's take a look at Rhizopheras meeting the challenge of the estuary. So in the estuarine environment, the problem is that the tidal waters are taking the water down, exposing you to the drying effects of air, or the tidal waters are coming up, exposing the plant to high salinity. The additional third feature of the estuary, the estuarine environment of the mangrove, is the accumulation of mud. And this mud prevents oxygen from reaching the root system and allowing it to carry out the process of respiration. So again, the Rhizophera has features which offer resistance against this, and they include having thick cuticle as well. They have mechanisms of salt secretion in their leaves, but the most obvious response to their environment is the presence of this type of root system, which is called a pneumophore. Now, a pneumophore is a vertical root growth that we can see here as they grow up and through the accumulating mud, allowing the plant to obtain oxygen for its roots. And so we have these resistance features which prevent water loss and obtaining oxygen, but the resilience comes from the capacity of the Rhizophera to grow its pneumophores up through the accumulating muds. So whilst the mud might get deeper, it can still grow up through them. And finally, another feature of Rhizophera that provides resilience and resistance is the presence of the buttress roots like so, that allow it to resist the movement of tidal waters and of winter storms, which could disrupt the stability of the plant. So 2 responses to the habitat through the adaptations of 2 different organisms in 2 very different ecosystems. The next video in this sequence is appearing here, a chance to subscribe to the site, and of course the playlist of this particular topic.